Hello and welcome to the Global Dialogue. I'm Shireen Bhan, and it is our pleasure and privilege to have on the program Neal Mohan, the Global CEO of YouTube, joining us here today. Neal, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18 and welcome to India. And if I could start by saying that this is a bit of a special homecoming for you, isn't it? Because it's not just your first visit as CEO to India, but you have a special India connection because you did what, high school here in Lucknow?
Yeah, and obviously I'm of Indian descent. I grew up mostly in the Midwest in the U.S. I was born in Indiana when my father was a grad student there, and I moved back to Lucknow, where my family's from, and went to high school here, as you point out. So, in that sense, it is a bit of a homecoming. Of course, I have lots of friends and family and the like here that I've stayed in touch with over the years, but. It's a homecoming in that sense, and it's also a homecoming in the sense of my role as the CEO of YouTube and getting to meet all these amazing creators that I've only connected with either electronically or in other ways, and getting to meet them in person too.
Well, I would imagine that that's going to be pretty exciting. But let's talk about India and the role, relevance and significance of India as far as the YouTube global story is concerned. What's exciting about India? I know it's one of your fastest growing markets, but if you could give us some color on just how important and significant it is for you.
Yeah, I would say a few things about that. So as you point out, it is our fastest growing market. It's also our largest market in terms of audience and viewers. And so in many ways, it is so amazing to see the vibrancy of our creator ecosystem here in India, to see, just walking along the streets outside of my hotel, seeing how YouTube is used in everybody's daily lives, seeing all these amazing creators. And so seeing that vibrancy is amazing, but the other thing that I think is also really interesting to see, and you really don't get it until you experience it firsthand, which I've been doing, is how India is leading in lots of just global trends in terms of the creator economy all over the world. Lots of things happen here first. Well, as an example, this is our first but also largest market for shorts. We launched shorts, YouTube Shorts here, I'd say now about 4 years ago. And we've served up trillions of views on YouTube Shorts. Lots of things that happen on Shorts in terms of fandom and trends and things like that, I see first happening here in India. And I think a lot of that is just a testament to the creativity, the storytelling culture here. And so it's just super exciting to see it firsthand.
You talked about the storytelling culture and how you're seeing that manifest itself in the way that people are consuming, but also creating here in India. But if I, were to go back a little bit and talk about how you see YouTube for the future, and I know that you believe that it is YouTube is at the nexus of technology and creativity. At the back end, you've got software engineers. At the front end, you've got the creative economy sort of driving it. Do you see that mix changing? Do you think at the back end we're going to see you hire differently as you move to more and more of a creative era?
That's a really interesting question, and I think that our mission is to give everyone a voice and show them the world, and that's it's a very simple sentence, but I think it has a profound meaning in terms of how we approach our business. And I always say, the way I always talk about it with our teams is our job is to build the stage, and it should be the world's best stage. And what I mean by that is, metaphorically, it should have the best technology, it should have the best experience for viewers, but the people who are on the stage are our creators, musicians, artists, all of our media partners. And so the value that we're adding to that equation is the quality of that stage, and that's really the technology. And so we bring the technological innovation, whether it's AI, whether it's new creator tools, whether it's our discovery mechanism so that new creators are found every day. But the creativity comes from our creators, and we have a team, an amazing team, really throughout India that works hand in hand with our creators to make them successful or help them be successful on our platform. But the way that we are going to participate is always from a technology innovation standpoint.
I'll get to the tech in just a bit, but I want to pick up on what you just said on what's happening as far as the creator economy is concerned. So it's not the algorithm, it's authenticity that's driving the creator economy?
Well, the best way to really think about the algorithm, and a person on my team always reminds us of this, is that you should replace the word algorithm with audience. Because what the algorithm or our recommendation systems on YouTube are doing are connecting you as efficiently as possible, if you're a creator, with your audience, with your fans all over the world. And so think of the algorithm, so to speak, as your fans, your audience, because that's what YouTube's job is to put your amazing creativity in front of those fans. And so that's really how we think about it, and that's our role, is to continue to use our innovation, our AI, to do that. And as a result, that works for our creators, but also works for our viewers. According to ComScore, we are the largest streaming platform on connected TV. We have the largest, viewership, both in terms of watch time, but also in terms of actual viewers. And so that's just a testament of this creative ecosystem sort of working for our creators, but also for our viewers.
So I want to understand from you, what you see as the potential headroom for growth. Ad revenue up 13% year on year, if I look at your Q2 numbers for Google, and subscriptions up 14%, largely driven by YouTube. Given the kind of appetite for growth that you see, what could this potentially be over the next few years? So
you called out a couple of them. So as you point out, we do have this sort of twin engine growth model, or business model, if you will. And so I would say that, in my view, we're in the early days of both of those business opportunities. I think the advertising ecosystem will continue to grow. I'm here also to meet with a lot of our largest advertisers, our brands. What they tell me when I meet with them here on the ground in India, but all over the world, is they love that authentic connection between creators and their fans, and they want to participate in that. So I think there's a lot of upside to be had there. On the subscription side, I think we've been in the YouTube Music and Premium business for a few years now. As you point out, we've seen really nice success there, over 100 million subscribers for YouTube Premium around the world. But I think there also there's lots of upside to be had, because those are oftentimes some of our most passionate and ardent users of our platform, and so there's a lot more growth to be had on that side of our business.
So when you talk about growth, and when you talk about consolidating your dominance, whether it's music or looking at sports differently, what kind of innovations, both on the front end as well as on the business model, can we expect, and how do you differentiate yourself from all the others? I mean, let's start by talking about music, for instance. I mean, there is an offering that YouTube provides which is different from, say, a Spotify or whatever else is available at this point in time. But what kind of innovations, both on the business model side, monetization, that you bring to the table for the future?
Yeah, so I'll start with music. And as I said, I mean, one of the things that's nice about our space is that it is an incredibly competitive space. There's lots and lots of competition, which keeps us on our toes and keeps the space very dynamic. So, you mentioned some of them there. But you called out a differentiator on the music side. It is about the fact that we have all of this amazing music from our music partners, record labels, publishing companies, but we have all of this content, this fandom that's created around music. So it's not just a popular track, whether it's a Bollywood track or what have you. It's all the organic content that gets created on YouTube by fans of that enhance the experience if you're a music lover. So that's like a unique characteristic, I would describe, which is not only do we have the musicians and the artists doing what they do, but all the fandom that's created around them is what really sort of powers this creator ecosystem. But in terms of trends, I'll call out a couple of things that that I would say broadly. One is just the continued rapid acceleration of shorts. I mentioned trillions of views, 70 billion views a day globally on shorts. I think that's really early days. But the other really big one that I'm very excited about, and it's one that I think India is also leading the way on, is connected TV. So as I mentioned, we're the #1 streaming platform on connected TV. The use of connected TV has grown 4x in the last few years for us. If you're a top creator on our platform, your audience has grown 400%. The number of the top creator whose majority of audience comes from connected TV has grown 400%. So that I think is also a really big early days trend. So connected TV on one end of the spectrum, short form content on the other, and kind of everything in between.
But the economics from a creator's perspective, and I understand that you've given out about 50 billion over the past 3 years to creators on account of the content that they've created on YouTube specifically. I mean, what are we talking about? What could the size be to loosely sort of call the creator economy?
Well, I think that one sort of key thing to call out there, which I'm really excited about, and you see it again here in the Indian context, is the creator economy. We're the original and largest creator economy, and we intend for that to continue to grow. But the lines are blurring in terms of who's a creator, who's a participant, who's a viewer. So I think Shorts is another good example of that. One of the reasons why I believe Shorts has grown so rapidly in India is because it's given permission, both in terms of creativity, but also in terms of the technology, for all of us to be creators. We have creators on our platform. There's a creator named Biju who started during COVID, and he is now the largest creator, not just in India, but in all of Asia, and he started as a Shorts creator. And so the participatory nature of creation itself is changing.
Yeah.
And so it's what I mean by that is like the potential of the creator economy therefore is limitless.
So it's not just a sustainable career, it can be a hugely profitable career as well.
I think so. I mean, I always just say one of our goals is not just to help creators build an audience, but to build a business. Because it's when they actually start earning revenue from YouTube, from the creator economy, is what they can then sort of plow back into their creativity and continue to do that. We have over 3 million creators in the YouTube Partner Program, and my goal is to continue to grow the number of creators that are participating, because it's through that economic opportunity that they get to continue to do what they love.
So what do you believe that economic opportunity could be 5 years on? I mean, if you're talking about creative entrepreneurs that you're essentially helping create, what could that opportunity look like in the next 5 years?
It's hard for me to say put a dollar figure on it, but I think that we're really still in the early days of what that potential could be. And remember, when I use the term creators, I'm talking about endemic creators, Shorts creators. You could be doing a 15-second short to a 15-minute VOD to 15-hour live stream and everything in between. And the formats vary too, right? So could be video, could be podcasting, could be audio, could be music, of course. And so all of that is the vibrancy of the creativity. And so if you add all of that, who knows what the potential could be a few years from now.
I want to take you back to your product days and now as CEO. How much of what you did during your product days have you had to unlearn, or are there new learnings that you had to bring to the table as CEO?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I would say that a lot of what I do in my CEO role is frankly a continuation of what I was doing a lot on when I was the chief product officer and helping build our products. Because fundamentally, as I described to you in terms of our role in the creator economy, it is to build the products. It's to build that stage that I described. And so I still participate, of course, in setting the overall product strategy for the company, but I, believe it or not, on a weekly basis, I'm in product reviews, working with the product teams.
Messing about with the products?
I use the products. I've got, my wife and my 3 kids are heavy users of the product, so the Mohan household is a big YouTube family. So I get lots of product feedback just from my own family members. And that's one of the fun parts of the job, is to continue to push the envelope in terms of innovation, whether it's a small feature that a creator is telling me about, or big ideas like how do we invest in AI.
So, on that, you preempted my question. So what's next now as far as innovation is concerned? And what is the role specifically of AI and Gen AI if the idea really has been to use YouTube to democratize content and content creation? How does Gen AI change the game?
Yeah. So I'm glad you said both AI and Gen AI,
yes,
because today the AI conversation sort of tends to focus on Gen AI, and I'll come to that in a second. But keep in mind that we have been investing in AI on YouTube for many, many years now. If you think about, again, the algorithm and recommendations on our platform, that's powered by machine learning and all the investment that we've made on that front that we will continue to do. Everything that we do from a responsibility standpoint in terms of protecting our ecosystem, the 2 billion users that come to the platform. That's also a big investment in AI. But the generative AI piece, I think, is really interesting. Again, back to something that you said at the very beginning, which is YouTube really does sit at the nexus of creativity and media on the one hand, and technology on the other. And so I view our unique position in this generative Gen AI revolution as connecting those two spheres, creativity and technology. And so what does that mean? Well, it means, at least from my perspective, that everything that we're going to be doing as it relates to generative AI is going to be in service of our creators.
Okay.
Meaning that they're going to be tools, never replacing our creators. And because
augmenting, essentially.
Yeah, because I've seen there's two things that I know are true every time there's like a really sort of big technology revolution, at least in the creative space. One is we all as human beings are really interested in stories of other human beings. And so our creators are always going to be front and center in this new world. But I also know that these tools can lead to new sets of opportunities that we can't even imagine today. So our investment is sort of squarely on thinking about generative AI as a set of tools for our creators. And again, here I think India has been leading the way. So we've created a standalone app called YouTube Create. It is a creation app. And it is an app that we are going to infuse with generative AI capabilities to help creators produce content on their mobile phones. We have a couple of experiments that we have been doing. One's called Dream Track, which is a way and a music AI incubator. So we have creators like King who are part of that music AI incubator, giving us feedback on how generative AI can enhance the music experience for fans. And Dream Track is an example of that, where you can give a text prompt and actually generate music, out of thin air. Dream Screen is another version of a product where now if you're a creator and you say something like, give me, a background with, India Gate and clouds in the background that are, XYZ color, it can generate that in a matter of seconds that previously might have taken that creator maybe a day or at least several hours to produce using a set of tools. And so that's what I mean. It's like allowing our creators to do something much more efficiently than they otherwise wouldn't, or allowing an entirely new class of creators to do something that would have been impossible before. And that's the focus of our generative AI efforts.
So what kind of money are you putting towards being able to create some of these tools? I mean, what is the quantum of investments both on the AI side as well as on the Gen AI side?
As I said, on the core, just AI in general, I think that is just deeply infused into our overall product development. So, all the work that we do on the trust and safety side, on the recommendation side, that's just infused with this investment in AI. So it's even hard to sort of parse what's AI versus what's non-AI, et cetera. It's really just part of our product development. And when it comes to generative AI investments, the way I think of, and here we obviously have at YouTube, we have a deep collaboration with our sister company and Google DeepMind and that research, and that's more fundamental research and large language models. Our job is to build the products and features that our creators are going to use, that our viewers are going to use. And there also, I view that as core to our product development process. In order for us to be successful in this new technology, it has to be infused in terms of how we think about all of the features. And so I'm giving you the philosophy in terms of how we think about them as tools for our creators. But if we think about them that way, then they should be infused in everything that we do for our creators.
You talked about innovation, but let me also tie that down to what's happening as far as regulation is concerned, and talk specifically about what's happening in India. We've got a pretty controversial draft broadcast bill that is not up for discussion yet, but there are consultations that have taken place. How do you read that? The critics of the bill argue that it is a censorship by compliance, essentially. What is YouTube's reading of the draft broadcast bill in India, and do you see similar provisions anywhere else in the world?
Well, I mean, as you point out, we work with regulators and our stakeholders and governments really all over the world. And I think that at the highest level, we have shared interests, which are to make sure that citizens of all of these countries in which YouTube operates get the most benefit out of platforms like YouTube, and making sure that those users are protected on our platform, which is a very, very shared interest between our government partners and stakeholders and YouTube and all of our creators. With respect to the broadcast bill specifically, I think it's it's early days. We're reviewing the bill. We're looking forward to that consultative process that you called out with the government and continuing those conversations. So that's probably the most I would be able to say about that. My team obviously is going through the analysis of it as well. But yeah, go ahead.
No, is this, I mean, getting to be a bigger challenge for you to deal with as CEO today? I mean, India's got this draft broadcast bill. Regulators around the world are looking at ways to be able to clamp down on content that they believe should not exist on public platforms. Is it getting harder to navigate public spaces online?
I think that comes with our position in terms of how central we are to the creative economy in a market like India, but really all over the world. And so in some sense, engaging with our government partners and our stakeholders is a privilege and also frankly a necessity, because I do think that we have these shared goals. Like at the end of the day, my number one priority at YouTube, and none of the things that we talked about in terms of business models or innovation or creator opportunities would be possible without living up to our responsibility. And that means everything from, we are a platform. As I said, our mission is to give everyone a voice. We're an open platform, a platform where there are all kinds of opinions, all types of speech on our platform. But it is, from the very early days, that doesn't mean anything goes.
Yeah.
We've always had community guidelines, and it's our job, our responsibility at YouTube to make sure that our community guidelines stay up to date. They reflect the nature of the societies in which we operate, and then to be transparent about them, and then do our best using all this technology that I described, using the thousands of people we have all over the world that are enforcing those community guidelines, do our best to enforce them. And that's really the only way that I know how to live up to our responsibility and also maintain the openness of our platform that has created all of this opportunity.
And that is the current challenge, isn't it? Free speech, and yet the need to ensure that there is moderation and there are guidelines and it is a safe space. What's been the experience on that front today? I mean, I remember you saying that whatever's happening in the world is happening on YouTube, and we have active wars currently on in the world at this point in time. We've got situations that have just taken place over the last few days where there is an active call inciting violence, for instance, in different parts of the world. Do you believe that there is a need to perhaps review the moderation community guidelines, the moderation policy? Is there a need to engage actively with regulators, with governments at this point in time around the world? I mean, how do you see the road ahead on this front going forward?
I mean, I think you encapsulated it quite well. I do think what happens in the world happens on YouTube, and what happens on YouTube does influence what happens in the world. And that's why living up to our responsibility here in India, but really globally everywhere that we operate around the world, is my top priority. It's what I will prioritize above everything else, because it is the right thing for us to do, but it is also the basis of the business opportunities, the creator economy, everything that we've talked about. And so we work very closely with our partners in government here in India, but really all throughout the world. And I would say that we have a clear set of community guidelines that we have invested in very heavily over the years. In many ways, we have learned through trial by fire over the years to understand sort of how those community guidelines could be written, how they should be clear. But they are always up for being modified. It's important for us to have clear principles, but then also to be flexible in terms of how we adjust them. Because as you rightly point out, what's happening in the world is changing on a regular basis. And so that's really how I've approached the space. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It used to be what I was responsible for, even as a chief product officer before I took over as CEO. And it's something, as I said, that I'm going to prioritize both in terms of my time, but also resources at the company before anything else.
And I know you've got the 3 Ps that you believe in: people, principles, and process. And I can see that the principles is part really of your legacy as CEO that you want to leave behind. But just just to continue on this, the quantum of content that you're having to take down today versus a couple of years ago voluntarily, versus what governments or regulators are asking you to take down, which you sometimes may or may not agree with. If you can give me some color on how things have changed on that front.
Well, what I would say is that generally speaking, at the highest level, I don't think things have changed that dramatically in terms of the number of videos. You know, every quarter we remove millions of videos from our platform. Many times the majority of the channels that we remove are, you know, kind of spam and those types of things that we pride ourselves in being very efficient in terms of removing, because they sort of clutter the experience, get in the way of the viewer and creator experiences, and that, you know, hasn't changed. I mean, those things have sort of in terms of the raw numbers there. And remember, even when I say millions of videos removed from the platform on a quarterly basis, that's a very small fraction of the corpus of content that's available on YouTube. So I would say that that's been relatively consistent. What is also consistent, of course, is that any country that we operate in, we are going to abide by the laws of that country. And so when there are when the process in terms of following the law comes into place and that sort of channel exists, we are going to comply with that. And so that's, you know, something that we're very clear about. We want to be efficient about, and that's sort of how we approach it. But I will just, you know, bringing it back to where the conversation started, it's important to keep in mind that the vast majority of creators and the viewership and the watch time that we're talking about is really about all of these amazing verticals that exist on our platform, whether it's sports or learning or cooking or music or all of those. And that's really the core experience that I'm witnessing, you know, during my time here in Delhi, that viewers are telling me about regularly.
You know, you talked about learning as one of the exciting verticals on YouTube. Going back to your startup days, what was it? Organic chemistry that you were hoping to teach people?
Wow, you've done a lot. You've done like lots of research here. Yes, you know, that was one of my first forays into entrepreneurship. It was a computer science. I've been a computer science enthusiast even in my early days in high school in Lucknow, and I remember my very first computer, and for some reason I love chemistry. That was one of my favorite subjects, so I combined my love for computer science and chemistry, and I created this software package, this organic chemistry package that just taught people about organic chemistry. And then I did a 1.0 version of that, then I did a 2.0 version, which was like, how do you do organic chemistry experiments? And anyways, that is a blast from the past, but you know, the roads, I guess, in some sense, all lead back to that in some way.
You know, that was a blast from the past, but let's end with the future, Neal. You know, you gave me a glimpse into what is exciting at this point in time, but what, to your mind, could YouTube potentially be over the next few years? You know, what are the new vistas, for instance, that you would hope to touch, to achieve?
Yeah, I think, again, back to our mission, in a nutshell, I want to make sure that we are the best streaming platform for creating, sharing, and watching video, whether it's 15 seconds, 15 minutes, 15-hour live streams, and everything in between. And so for us, for me, that's about investing in, as we talked about, AI and generative AI in terms of creator tools, investing in new ways, new avenues of monetization to continue to grow the creator economy. So AVOD business models, SVOD business models, but two others that I'm very excited about are things like shopping and commerce. I think that's another area where India will lead the way. Fan funding, so direct to consumer business models for our creators. So that's another aspect. And then, as I pointed out, the growth of both participatory creation via tools like Shorts on mobile, but also increasingly consumption on connected TVs, especially for the younger generation in India. When they turn on the television set, they're turning on YouTube. And so we have to lean into that and make sure that it's the best experience possible. You
know, and I'll end by asking you, we grew up in an era of linear TV, and then, you know, then we had cable and so on and so forth, and it was 60 minutes on the news, and today you're doing 15 seconds on Shorts and so on and so forth. I mean, how much of sort of being a part of this ecosystem has meant for you personally to really, you know, adapt not just to change, but to connect with this demographic as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I back to the early days, I am a technologist, but I've also been a media junkie. I love everything from, I love news, I love sports, I love
what do you
music.
spend most of your time on?
In terms of content?
Yeah.
Sports, probably. I'm a sports nut. You know, I watch all kinds of sports: basketball, football, cricket. YouTube's, you know, did 50 billion views of cricket, I think, in the last 12 months, and so I love all forms of media, and that's what keeps me excited about the job that I'm in. And you're right. Like, a lot of this is through the lens of young people. I've got 3 young people in my own house. I get to see what they assume as just a given around their media consumptions, as you mentioned. I still remember the days when, as you said, we went from linear TV here to cable, right, with the advent of Star and the like, and changed the game, right? Like, for as a media kid like myself, it was like my mind was blown, and I think that's happening to this generation through things like shorts, where they get to participate, but also, you know, live stream and watching all this fandom. So, like, you know, my son, he watches sports, he'll watch the live games, but he watches all this amazing creator commentary that's happening in parallel to it, just like the way that I would watch, you know, a cricket highlight show when I was in high school.
So, advice to legacy media incumbents like us, I mean, what should we do or not do to sort of flourish and thrive in the era that we live in today?
Well, first of all, I think you know this, I mean, your channel and set of channels on YouTube are incredibly successful, and so you figured something out in terms of
We've had our best month in July, so that's good news.
So I think it's really a continuation of that, and I view you know, what you're doing, but also what I think news in general is doing, of leaning into all forms of format storytelling. It's awesome to see how journalists are personalities on our platform, because that authenticity really comes through, and it's everything from shorts to, you know, kind of 24-hour live streams and everything in between. That's another area where I'm just amazed being on the ground here in terms of how traditional media companies, news organizations have really embraced and leaned into YouTube as a way to not just connect with younger audiences, but just really to kind of move forward their businesses overall.
Neal, it's been an absolute pleasure. We wish you the very best of luck, and we look forward to seeing you back here in India soon. And thank you very much for sharing your insights as well as your views on what YouTube's future looks like. Appreciate your time here on CNBC-TV18.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of the Global Dialogue. From all of us here on the team, goodbye. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There's a lot more coming up right after this.